Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Great to be back.
Today, we are focusing our attention on Dutch Bros. You know, that high-growth coffee name a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, it's been on a lot of watch lists.
And the big question really is this. Is now, late September 2025 a good time to buy?
It's the question, isn't it? Especially with its pretty aggressive expansion and the stock's volatility. We've gathered the latest SEC filings, looked at the charts, the technicals, analyst notes, basically trying to give you a clear snapshot.
Right, sort of checking the foundations under this really fast-moving company. Okay, let's get into it. But before we do, just a quick reminder. If you find this helpful, please hit subscribe, maybe like the video, leave a comment.
Yeah, definitely. And tell us if there's another company you want us to look into. We do read those comments.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay, financials first. Where do we even start with this growth story?
Well, you start with the top line because that's where the excitement is, undeniably.
Okay, so the revenue momentum, it's strong. Full year 2024, they hit $1.08 billion.
Which is huge. That's up 28% from 2023's $841 million.
Wow, okay. And that's mostly driven by just opening more and more stores, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Continued unit growth is the main driver there. But, and this is a big but, this is where we need to pump the brakes a little and talk profitability.
Uh-oh. So the growth is there, but maybe not the profit.
Well, let's look. Net income for that same full year, 2024, only $24.8 million.
$24.8 million on over $1 billion in revenue. What does that work out to margin-wise?
It's tiny, a net margin of only about 2.3%.
2.3%. Okay, how does that stack up against, say, the giants, like Starbucks?
It doesn't really stack up yet, honestly. Starbucks typically runs north of 10% net margins, sometimes quite a bit north.
Okay, so that's a massive gap.
Right.
Dutch Bros is basically prioritizing speed over profit right now.
That seems to be the strategy, yes. Capture the market share, build the footprint fast, worry about optimizing margins later, but that speed costs money.
Which brings us to debt, I imagine, if they're spending so much.
Exactly. You look at the balance sheet, and yeah, it shows. They're carrying $690 million in long-term debt.
$690 million. And how much cash do they have against that?
About $224 million in cash and equivalents.
So quite a bit more debt than cash. What about the debt-to-equity ratio?
It's around 2.0, which, again, for context, is pretty high. The norm in the fast casual sector is usually more like 1.0 to 1.5.
So they're definitely using leverage to fuel this growth.
Yeah.
More than their peers.
They absolutely are. Now, it's not all bad news on the cash front. Operating cash flow was positive.
Okay, how much?
$141 million for 2024. So the existing stores are generating cash from their day-to-day operations.
But wait. If they generate $141 million, why is the debt so high? Where did that cash go?
That's the key. You have to look at free cash flow. That's the cash left after they pay for big investments, like building new stores. Negative $31 million.
So they spent more than they brought in from operations.
Yes, because capital expenditures, mostly building those new units, were a whopping $172 million.
Wow. So they burned through all their operating cash and then some, just on expansion.
Pretty much. They are aggressively reinvesting everything and borrowing on top of that to build out the chain. Until that free cash flow turns positive consistently, that's a vulnerability.
Okay, so financially, it's a picture of super high growth, fueled by debt, with very thin profits right now.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears slightly. What's the bull case? Why are people excited despite these numbers?
Well, it's about the market position and that growth trajectory. They're the third largest drive-through coffee chain in the U.S.
Third largest already. That's impressive.
It is. And they have real regional strength, particularly out west, and this very distinct high-energy brand.
Yeah, they definitely have a vibe.
And that growth rate since the IPO, the compound annual growth rate, CAGR, is around 30%. That makes them one of the fastest growers in the whole beverage space.
So the competitive edge is that speed, the drive-through focus, customization, and this loyal customer base.
That's the core of it, yeah. They're betting that combination can keep driving growth, and analysts, for the most part, seem to agree, at least on the growth front.
What are the forecasts looking like for, say, 2025?
The consensus estimates project revenue hitting $1.3 billion in 2025, so continued strong growth.
And profit. Any improvement expected there?
Some. Net income is projected to rise to maybe $34 million. Still a low margin, but moving in the right direction, assuming they execute on expansion and start getting some cost efficiencies.
Okay, execution is key. What are the big long-term catalysts people are watching for?
Two main things mentioned in the sources. First, geographical expansion, really pushing beyond their current footprint.
Like that East Coast rollout we've heard whispers about.
Exactly. They're looking at it seriously. Atlanta, Miami mentioned as potential pilot markets. Success there would be huge.
And the second catalyst has to be margins, right?
Bingo. Margin expansion initiatives. This is crucial. They're talking about supply chain optimization,
Yeah.
using their growing scale to get better prices, reduce waste,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else?
and upgrading their digital infrastructure, better apps, smoother online ordering, anything to improve efficiency and maybe handle more volume per store.
Right. Those things could definitely help the bottom line if they pull them off. Okay. Fascinating fundamental picture. High growth, high risk. Let's look at the stock itself. How's it actually trading?
So as of late September 2025, the price is hovering around $67.40.
And what's the recent action been like? Trending up, down, sideways?
More sideways, really.
You know.
Chopping around in a range lately, mostly between, say, $62.50 on the low end and $72.30 on the high end. Consolidation.
Okay, consolidation. So are there key levels traders should be watching for a potential break?
Definitely. Short-term support looks to be in the $63 to $64 to $64.50 zone. If it breaks below that, could see more downside.
And resistance, the ceiling they need to punch through.
That's up around $71 to $73. A solid break above $73 could signal the next leg up.
And where does it sit relative to the moving averages?
Right now, it's basically sitting right on its 50-day simple moving average, which is at $67.20.
Which confirms that consolidation point. Just treading water near the average.
Pretty much, but it's still comfortably above the longer-term 200-day SMA, which is down near $60.75. So the longer-term uptrend is technically still intact.
Okay. What about volatility? Does this stock move around a lot?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely volatile. The beta is around 1.45.
Meaning it's about 45% more volatile than the broader market or sector.
Basically, yes. You need to be prepared for bigger swings, both up and down, compared to your average stock.
Good to know. Any signals from indicators like RSI or MACD?
The RSI Relative Strength Index is pretty neutral, sitting around 56. Not overbought, not oversold.
So no strong signal there.
Not really. However, there was a slight bullish crossover noted in the MACD indicator just recently, in late September.
Okay, what does that suggest, briefly?
It sometimes hints that short-term momentum might be starting to turn positive. The faster-moving average is crossing above the slower one. It's not a guarantee, but it's a little nudge in the bullish direction, technically speaking.
Interesting. Little technical nudge amidst the consolidation. Okay, let's connect this back to news and sentiment. What's been driving things lately?
Well, the positive momentum got a boost back in August with the Q2 2025 earnings.
They beat expectations, right?
They did, and importantly, same-shop sales were up 6.8%, which is pretty healthy.
And didn't they raise guidance after that?
Yes, management bumped up the full-year revenue forecast to $1.60 billion. That definitely got investors' attention, signaling confidence for the rest of the year.
And analysts responded positively, too.
Mostly, yeah. We saw JP Morgan upgrade the stock to overweight back in July, target $75. And RBC Capital just reiterated their outperform rating this month, September, with a pretty bullish $85 price target.
Okay, $75, $85 targets. That shows some conviction. So looking ahead, what are the immediate things investors should keep an eye on?
The biggest near-term catalyst is definitely the Q3 2025 earnings report. That's scheduled for November 6th.
Expectations will be high after that guidance raise.
Extremely high. Any miss could be punished, given the valuation. Also, watch out for potential volatility around late October. There's a major ETF rebalancing scheduled that sometimes shakes things up for individual stocks.
Okay. And anything else?
Yeah, just keep an ear out for updates on those new shop openings. They've planned for about 150 new units across Q4 25 and Q1 26. Investors want to see that rollout happening smoothly.
Got it. Lots of positive momentum, high expectations. But let's bring in the counterpoints. You mentioned the insiders, the people running the company. What are they doing?
Yes. This is probably the biggest piece of negative sentiment, and it's significant. There's been quite a bit of insider selling.
Yeah, how much are we talking about?
The sources point to proposed and executed sales by founders and directors totaling around $66 million, mainly in May and August of 2025.
Wow. $66 million. That's a lot. That's not just routine diversification, is it?
It's hard to spin that amount as purely routine. While insiders sell for many reasons, a figure that large, involving founders and directors, certainly raises eyebrows about their long-term conviction at current prices.
It definitely dampens the enthusiasm a bit, doesn't it? Was there any insider buying to offset that?
Very little, and mostly seems contractual. The chief marketing officer got about 8,500 shares through RSU conversions in July.
So restricted stock units vesting, Standard compensation stuff.
Pretty much. It's not like executives were out actively buying shares on the open market. It pales in comparison to the $66 million in selling. The signal from the selling is much stronger here.
Okay, so significant insider caution. And you mentioned not all analysts are buying the hype either.
Correct. While some are bullish, others are more cautious. Citi, for example, maintained a neutral rating back in August.
And their reasoning.
Primarily elevated valuation. They essentially argue the stock price already reflects a lot of future success, leaving little room for error if execution falters.
Makes sense. So tying it all together, what are the core risks that you as an investor really need to grapple with here?
I think it boils down to three main things detailed in the sources.
Okay.
One, intense competition. Coffee is crowded. That could squeeze margins even if they grow.
Okay, competition. What else?
Two, execution risk. Pulling off such rapid growth, especially into new, potentially tougher markets like the East Coast, isn't easy. If new store performance disappoints, the numbers could unravel fast.
Right, the plan looks great on paper, but reality can bite.
Mm-hmm.
And the third risk.
Leverage, that high debt load we talked about, it makes them very sensitive to interest rate changes or any slowdown in the business. It amplifies both gains and losses.
Okay, competition, execution, leverage. Got it. So
Yeah.
bring it all home. Growth versus profitability, bullish analysts versus insider selling, technical consolidation. What's the final synthesis? Is Dutch Bros a buy now?
Well, based on everything we've looked at, the overall assessment lands at about a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5 out of 10. Okay, why that specific score? What's the rationale?
It reflects that balance, really. You've got the undeniable, strong top-line growth and that really sticky brand loyalty, which is great.
The pros.
Right. But balancing that out are the current profitability metrics, which are just way below peers, the fairly high valuation the stock commands, and, that significant insider selling can't be ignored.
So for you, the listener, trying to decide what to do, what's the takeaway?
The conclusion from the sources suggests the stock is probably better suited for short-term trading right now.
Why short term?
Because those near-term catalysts, the upcoming earnings, news about shop openings, they could provide enough momentum to drive the price higher, maybe break that resistance level we talked about. There's potential for a trade.
But not necessarily a long-term investment hold.
The long-term case feels less compelling at this moment, not until we see real sustained improvement in those profit margins and, crucially, a consistent shift to positive free cash flow. Buying now for the long haul is basically a pure bet on flawless execution overcoming the current financial weaknesses.
Right. So it's that classic growth stock dilemma.
Yeah.
Paying up for future hope versus current reality. High growth, low margin.
Exactly. And the high leverage adds another layer of complexity to that bet.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to mull over. We've seen how fast they're expanding and how much debt they're using to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So given that pressure, how critical might those rumored strategic partnerships become? Or even a more aggressive, permanent shift towards a franchise model? Could that be the only way for Dutch Bros to keep expanding quickly without piling on even more debt, especially with labor costs rising and competition heating up? Something to think about before that next earnings call.
Definitely something to watch. How they fund future growth is going to be key.
Absolutely. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to Investing Talk Podcast.
Thanks, everyone.